Okey, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Selamat petang kepada semua. Wish you doing good. Good morning again, if you are streaming at the morning, and then good evening for those who are streaming at evening and night. Okay, so without any uh, wasting time, so we're gonna proceed to uh, chapter 3, which is the post-Cold War. And last week I already present about chapter 2 and chapter 1, and also regardless on the evolutions of the uh, IR. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so this is the the slide. So post-Cold War and the New World Order. So before this, we already explained about the evolutions of the threat perception. Okay, so when during the Cold War, so threat perception mainly focus on the traditional threats. Okay, so in types of threats, they have two. Okay, the first would be the traditional threat, which is the threat being made by the use of force or military. For example, war. Okay, for example, World War One, and World War Two, and also Cold War. That is, we call it as a traditional threat. The second, after the Cold War ends, so there is no any evidence that world could happen again in terms of the World War, which is the World War Third or World War Three. But a lot of threats, new threats, will actually interfere the security of the state. So we call it as the non-traditional security threat or new threats, okay, or strategic threats lah, we call it. For example, terrorism, human trafficking, transborder crime, and etc. So every single threat which is excluded the conventional threat will be considered as the non-traditional threats. Okay, so now we're gonna learn about uh, the the evolutions of the New World Order in the post-Cold War, and the September 11, which is the benchmark of the uh, terrorism, terrorism activity, and the expose of the terrorism in the world, and the new threats which actually become very become fearing to all the state in the international system. Okay, so this is the course outline, introductions, and will defines terrorism, explain 9/11 attack, explain post-conflict development, explain current terrorism activity, and also we're going to analyze the UN and Middle East action on terror. Okay, first of all, if we talk about terrorism, okay, most of the Western will feel that uh, the terrorism will be linked with the Islamist extremist terrorism, also mostly known as the Islamic. We call it as the groups. They put on fear, and also they attack the civilian. They do suicide bombing. So in Western, they always portray these kinds of things, okay, to blackmail the Muslim itself. But for example, okay, so every time a terrorist attack or should occur, so Muslim closely watch the news with extreme trepidation, praying that this suspect is not Muslim. This is because these terrorists are likely to be Muslim, but rather because of the instance where they happen to be. We see the amplified mass media coverage and semi-unjustified hatred to Muslim. Okay, so this is because of the New World Order and also the westernizations and also the racisms of the white people, the white people to the Muslim state. Okay, and also Muslim group, religious group. For example, if let's say a Muslim shooter, it if let's say a Muslim shooter they shoot one person, but because of the shooter is a Muslim, 1.3 billion Muslim held the responsible. But if if the man who did the shooter, he's a black man, but the Western will not blame all the black people, but they just say that it is gang related violence. This is and if let's say the shooter were a professional shooter, they will call it as a national hero or collateral damage. Okay. For example, if the shooter were white shooter, which is the American shooter, they call it as a lone wolf or parking problem or emotional issues to them. For example, you know, last 2 years we have a gun shooter in Christchurch, which actually killed more than 50 Muslims. More than 50 Muslims uh, people and being done by white shooter, but until now the thing will not known as an terrorist of act. But if let's say the man is a Muslim, then all Muslim are held responsible of that. So this shows that mass media coverage unjustified hatred towards Muslim. This is a bias from the media as well as the Western, who always put blame on Muslim. For example, there has a lot of things, lot of terrorism activity happen, not including Muslim. For example, London bombing, 2004, Madrid bombing, 2006, which the responsible person were the IRA, Revolution Army, which they had killed more than hundreds people, white people, British people, and they bombed the subway. But until now, they're being known as as an as a separatist movement. But they are for the Western, they don't feel that they don't says that this group are the terrorists, but they feel that they always portray them as rebels or mujahideen. But if you look back at the terrorism definitions, the terrorism always says that terrorism is about the act of violence against the civilian and against the human. Okay, so if you do violence against human or child, you are considered as a terrorist. Okay, so many saw the solutions to the problem faced by Muslim society as being a revival of Islamic identity, values, and power. Most sought to bring about change through peaceful means. Extremist minority has claimed a mandate from God that call to violence as missions. Okay. If you look at the Clash of Civilizations from Samuel Huntington, uh, in that book, Samuel Huntington mentioned that after Cold War, there will be a big war, which is the Clash of Civilization. Okay, so Samuel Huntington, he described eight civilization, which is first were the Western civilizations. Second were the Western civilization will be the American and also British. Slavic Orthodox will be the Russian, the Japanese, and the Sneak. Okay, China. So Latin America, Islamic, Middle East, African, as well as Hindus. Okay. So Samuel Huntington defined in his book, he says that one of these clash will be because of the civilization. For example, Western or Islamic, Slavic or with the Western or Western with cynic. So he justified that we will have a world war, but mainly focus on the civilization. Okay, this is about the theory that being implemented by the Samuel Huntington. So if you look at the Cold War, after finish the Cold War, so a lot of things happen in the world. For example, US itself, they had a lot of military operation in Middle East. One of their military operation were in Afghanistan. Okay, so in Afghanistan, they are militant. Okay, that actually a national uh, military in the Afghanistan, which is called Al Qaeda, and because of the 2001 London WTC attack, Wall Street Center attack, so Al Qaeda were labeled as the biggest and also deadliest terrorist group in international system. Okay, so this is about terrorism. Okay, so terrorism is about the deliberate and also the systematic use of violence against civilians, as I said before, with the aim of advising political, religious, or ideological causes. So terrorism is not a new phenomenon, but its impact has been magnified in a globalized world, distinguished by rapid technology advance in transportation, communication, and weapon development. So worldwide television coverage has transformed terrorism by expanding its visibility and also the impact. Okay, this is definitions of terrorism. So it is the pursuit of political goals through the systematic use of terror alone. This is from Townsend Terrorism 2002. And it is a fear that the terrorist act goes beyond physical damage causes. So terrorism is a part, we call it as symbolic violence. Okay, this is from Law Terrorism a History 2009. Okay, let's look at a bit historian of terrorism. So from actions in Rome also they have terrorism activities ancient times. For example, Sicari opposed Rome to Rome rule over Judea, but it has become one of the defending phenomena in the modern era. Huge variety of terrorism group in modern age cut across political spectrum. For example, Ku Klux Klan or KKK, Bader Meinhof gang, and also Al Qaeda. Okay, so that's why I wanted to say that uh, terrorists is not portrayed with any religions. Okay, because in every region they have a terrorist group, but mainly they are focused to for their needs. Okay, so they wanted to memperjuangkan lah, for example, to pursue their needs, okay, through the international system. Okay, on September 9/11, 19 men affiliated with Al Qaeda hijacked 4 planes and crashed two into the World Trade Center in New York City and one into the Pentagon. So the fourth plane crashed in Pennsylvania after passenger attacked the terrorists. Okay, this is the scene that actually portray the dangers of terrorism in the new era. This is the scene when September 11th 2001 occurs. So if you can look, terrorism, it is act throughout like cell. They have their mobility, so they have their coverage. So if you can look, Al Qaeda international president at the time of the September 11 attack, you can you can see how successful they are in the world. Okay, on 20 September, after the uh, Wall Street Center fell down, Bush, as the, US president, addressed that nation and declared our war on terrorism begin with Al Qaeda. But it does not end there. It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and also defeated. So Americans should not expect one battle, but a lengthy campaign, unlike any other we have ever seen. It may include dramatic strike, visible on TV, and covert operations. Uh, that will happen lah throughout the year lah until now. Still, we face these kind of things. Okay, so and while Americans launched their global war on terrorism, so Americans also launched their foreign policy, which is the force. We call it as force policy. If we not within with US, will we being create atau we being kita akan dilayan, okay, treat as a terrorist state. And the Bush quote, which is he says that either you are with us, either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists. Okay, so from this day forward, any other nation, that country that harbor or support terrorism will be regarded by the United States as the hostile regime. Okay, so this is the quote that actually translated into their foreign policy towards terrorism. Okay, international system. Okay, so American also launched, we call it as a preemptive strike. This preemptive strike is about a policy that forces British to forces American to attack other states that they feel that the state are protecting the terrorism activity. Okay, if you feel, if for example, if we feel that Singapore is a terrorist state, so we just go and attack them without any evidence. So that's actually American did when they attack Iraq in 2002 and demolish the state lah, demolish the state of Iraq. And till now, still the state of Iraq cannot develop. Okay, and it actually one of the biggest mistake from American. Okay, that they have did to the Middle East state. Okay, and also on that period also Bush label that all the state that support uh, communism and also support terrorists were called the axis of evil. Okay, so the term of axis of evil being used by the American during the Cold War, and to justify the pact that being made by the communists, which is the Warsaw Pact. Okay, because this is the group lah that American wanted to fight, and on the Cold War year, they also portray and also label, okay, the Warsaw Pact as an axis of evil. And on January 2002, Bush also label State of the Union address lah, label Iraq, Iran, and also North Korea as a axis of evil, and then they also says that they are regimes that sponsor terror. And this is the reason why Bush using his force to attack Iraq on 2002. Okay, so this is in United Nations. Colin Powell presented US evidence of Iraq will develop WMD, which is the weapon of mass destruction in the United Nations. And the US proposed a resolution to the Security Council to authorize military forces in Iraq and refused to disarm. France, German, Russia, and also other opposed the US resolutions, and it failed to pass. Nonetheless, the US joined by Britain and the coalitions of the willing to launch Operation Iraq Freedom in March 2003. Okay, this is Ronald himself. He says that the war on terror with 2003 with Iraq, it is a second Gulf War, because on 1990, after the Cold War end, US had the military operations in Iraq, which is called the Gulf War, because they wanted to help Kuwait, because on that period Kuwait had conflict with Iraq. So Iraq attacked and control Kuwait, and US helped Kuwait to attack Iraq on that period. So Ramsal says that this will be 2003 will be the second Gulf War lah. And it happened lah. And it happened. So this is the compare and contrast. You can see Desert Storm, the Gulf War 1, and also Iraqi Freedom. So the objective to liberate Kuwait, but in terms of war on terrorism, the objective is to change regime. You know, they wanted to get Saddam, get rid of Saddam, and then upon their puppet regime in the Iraq. Okay, so this is the comparison. You can just see it. Okay, and 2009 April 2003, US troop held Iraq troopable statute of Saddam in Iraq, and the cases happened, the war happened, and okay, and US control Iraq, and Saddam were brought out and being were were hanged by the by them lah. Okay, to end the rules of Saddam in the Iraq. Okay, so this is the post-conflict. You know what happened when Iraq being attacked. So a lot of things happened. For example, most of uh, the militants, you know, they bomb pipeline to sabotage the oil. They know that American came there for oil, not uh, to to actually to topple the terrorism. And then uh, all of the government building will be bombed by the American itself. You know, so it shows that it is not fair. Okay, so a lot of things, for example, UN building also were damaged by this crisis. Okay, and casualties continue. A lot of people die, you know, for example, military American, and a lot of intelligence also questions. Is it weapon of mass destruction were at the Iraq? You know, Iraq, is it exactly Iraq built the WMD? You know, until now we still don't look the proof. And also last 3 years, US military also had apologized. They says that they've been mistake, because when they did this operation, they didn't find any clue and also evidence about WMD in Iraq. So this is the cruels and also the the terrorism attack being led by US throughout the state of Iraq, and also all the people of Iraq. You know, a lot of people died because of this issue, and brought out nothing throughout the process. Okay, Saddam capture, hang, Iraq elections. You know, so post-conflict, you know, the issues that happen throughout the war on terrorism led by the Bush, for example, Bush uh, being misuse of his power by open specific uh, jail for the terrorism, you know, but the terrorism, the people that they feel who is terrorists were caught and were detained here, and they were bullied, and also um, treat them as an animal person. So it is very rude for the US to do this. And also the protests happened because we wanted to stop the war, because this conflict has created a lot of dead people which is innocent, and the political also play his role to push the Bush to over this war. And a lot of things happen lah because of this crisis. Okay, so for example, you can see here that the insurgency development that united Saddam loyalists, anti-American foreign educated, and also terrorists. So the lightning fast strike on Baghdad that had been so successful in achieving decision, battlefield victory had by decision, bypass train terrain, and not secured territory as it advanced. So the bypass weapon catches become the source of countless IED and proved to be the insurgency most deadly weapon. So in addition, the prolonged war, this development instigate a political controversy about the war planning and also leadership. Bear in mind, uh, w- war on terrorism, it is not a short war. For example, like World War One or World War Two, and it is much longer than Cold War, because Cold War happened 1946 until 1990, which is almost 54 years. 44 years. But uh, the war on terrorism, it is called a prolonged war because it will have until the 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 state can capture the he's like cell, the terrorist like cell. If you caught someone, if you caught a groups, another group will grow, so it is very hard to for example to overcome the situation. Okay, it's very hard. It really takes the contributions and also the effort of all of the state to help to overcome terrorism issues in the international system. Okay. Okay, this is additional terrorism consideration. Okay, so new terrorism activity emerged. For example, in Madrid, terrorism bombing killed 200%. Super Bowl in American, London bombing, suicide bombers are a common part of Israel. Issue of Israel Palestine until now still can't be settled by UN. It is a prolonged crisis until now, but the efforts of UN to settle this issue were being questioned because UN, being controlled by the American, and it is very shame for the international system, which is portrayed as a international police, but until now can't settle this conflict. And also, if let's say settle the conflict will be too far, but actually, if if UN can ask them to sit down and discuss and also put some effort in the conflict resolution, so this issue might be more convenient to be settled. But yet until now, no action been done by America, the US and the UN itself, and then the US also play his big role in support Israel. That's one of the things that portray United Nations as an relevant organization because of the US bias by them. Okay, numbers of terrorism activities throughout, not only in Europe but also in Asian. We have a lot. For example, Jemaah Islamiyah, which is suspected of having ties with Al Qaeda. Islamic JI is a Islamic uh, Orthodox, terrorists were also fundamental Islamic in Southeast Asia. You know, and also a lot of things happen in the world. So the challenging of all of the state, for example, in and also UN itself to actually overcome the international terrorism in the world will be much challenger r- rather than having a direct war with with the certain party. So it is much more challenging in 21st century for them. Okay, terrorism and modernity. The new causes to fight for and against, which is the nationalism, colonialism, and also communism, fascism, and anarchism. Okay, so if let's say they have, for example, this is the ideology, and because of the ideology, people have their soul to bend to certain group, for example, communism, for example, to nationalism, for example, we Malaysians, right? So for example, if let's say we watch football, automatically we will support Malaysia because we have soul with the nation. So that's why if you look at the terrorism itself, they have their soul with the organization. So it's very hard for us to overcome them. The role of modern technology also play a biggest role. For example, communication network and the network of terrorism activities and also terrorism in the world right now were far beyond. And it's very hard to catch them, to overcome them, and it actually really needs the contributions and also the kerjasama lah daripada semua all of the members in UN itself to overcome this crisis. Okay, the interpretations of the terrorism. So why terrorisms are so hard to be caught? Because some says terrorist is a terrorist. Some say they are not terrorists. They are freedom fighter. So the terms that come out, which is one person terrorist is another man freedom fighter. For example, I look at Israel is a terrorist group. They shows their act of terrorism towards the Palestinian. But let's say I'm an American person, so I will look at Palestine as a terrorist group that put a lot of use of force towards the Israel army. So how actually you see the issues, the crisis that belongs to the issue itself. Okay, and Michael Brick in his book, which is the Blood and Rage 2008, says that terrorists are criminal, insane, morally squalid, stressed importance of counterterrorism. So counterterrorism is a important thing nowadays. Every state has to operate their counterterrorism department. For example, in Malaysia, US, Indonesia, Australia. So this department will cater and cope up issues regardless on the terrorism activities, and also try to overcome this issue throughout their state. Okay, and law terrorism activities history. 2009 says that terrorism is a part of a process of rational and so conscientious decision making with a particular political and also culture context. Okay, this is a terrorism group that's still active. For example, if you look at the this is I get it from internet, stated 2008 18. So if you can look at the degree, okay, for example, the round above were the the impact of their terrorism activity. If you can look at that, and if you can see that every region has their own terrorism activities and also terrorism groups. So it's totally wrong if you say that Muslim is a prison, and most of the group were belongs to the Muslim terrorists. Is totally not not right. Okay, even though in American also we have terrorists, even in America Latin also we have terrorists. Okay, you can just look at it. And then this is the terrorism activity throughout the world. Uh, uh, this is a threat. For example, in American, they have nightclub shooting. Injured people. Even though in Asian, in Kuala Lumpur, so we have on 2016, nightclub bombing, 8 injured. So this activity throughout the world is very hard to overcome and to get caught them. But the thing is, the international collaboration should be more strength. UN should be more relevant in to become the main sources of international system to launch and also to become the main lah to overcome this crisis. Okay, in all the state we have unit or department that counter terrorism. Even though in UN Security Council too, we have the counter terrorism community, and this they actually uh, they are the frontliner lah for to 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 counter the terrorism activity. Okay, so this is the United Nations Counterterrorism Implementation Task. Okay, so they have 4 pillars. For example, first pillar, they address the condition conducive to the spread of terrorism. They see how far the how radius and also impact of the stress. And second were preventing and combating terrorism. They prevent or if let's say the activity already done, they have to combat terrorism. And then the third will be the building state, the capacity and strengthen the role of the nation. And the last will be the ensuring of human right and the role of law. Okay, so this is the pillar. Okay, this is in the Middle East. Okay, the Islamic Military Counterterrorism Coalition. So because Middle East is the main area lah. A lot of terrorism activity were led by. So most of, for example, Saudi Arabia already formed the Islamic Military Counterterrorism Coalition, so including 40 countries that form an pan-Islamic identified front in the global against to fight against the terrorism and also violent extremism. So Malaysia is a part of this member is this coalition. Okay. Uh, okay, you can see lah how actually they involve and help to portray and also to combat terrorism in international system. And that's all for today. The end. And how this is one question that I wanted to ask you guys. For example, how can you have a war on terrorism when war itself is a terrorism? So, if you use violence throughout the civilian, it is a terrorism activity. Okay, so that's all from now, and we shall continue for the next presentation. Will be the another one will be the theory of IR. Okay, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.